What is the purpose of business? Is it to make money for the owners? Or is it to create opportunity and prosperity? This question has been on my mind for a while now. When we see the headlines of corporate scandals, layoffs, poor labor conditions, that question of purpose cuts to the heart of the matter. And I think it's a question we really need to grapple with, because the globalization of business has had a profound impact on us. It's certainly opened the door to opportunities, but it has also put enormous pressure on our environment and our communities. According to the latest trust barometer by Edelman, trust in CEOs is at an all-time low. And the support for anti-business policies is overwhelming. And yet, there is an expectation that businesses take a leadership role in improving the conditions of our social and environmental conditions in our communities. Populist movements have been on the uprise, and they're taking aim at the business elite, who they see as the cause of job losses, stagnating wages, environmental harms. Just last week, the Prime Minister spoke about this in Hamburg, and he said we need to take this frustration seriously, and we do. What I believe underlies this is really a debate between two worldviews: the stakeholder theory and the shareholder theory. And those two have been largely confined to the pages of business journals and the corners of boardrooms. But I want to talk to you about both of them. The shareholder theory can be summed up into 3 words: maximize shareholder value. And that idea has dominated the North American economy since the 1970s. And it really got going when Milton Friedman wrote an article in the New York Times saying that the social responsibility of business is to increase profit. And the idea here was really that the owners would take the money and they would apply it in society as they saw fit. And so that gave birth to this idea that, what the shareholders wanted was most important. What the shareholders valued was most important. And therefore, we took value and profit and we put them together. Our stock markets, our economy, they're all driven by quarterly financial results. And that's driven a culture of short-term thinking. When you hear about things like layoffs, R&D spending being slashed, product recalls, labor strife, even consumer backlash, that's where it comes from. The stakeholder theory, on the other hand, is far more nuanced. In 1984, Edward Freeman really talked about this idea of rethinking the purpose of business as a vehicle to coordinate stakeholder interests. That really means that when we come up with a strategy for business, we're not just thinking about the shareholders. We're also thinking about the other stakeholders: employees, consumers, suppliers, the government, and communities. That's a complex undertaking, though. Now, there are pieces of this already in place. We have things like talent development, we have corporate donation programs, we have ethical sourcing and social environmental standards, but we still tacitly subscribe to this idea that the shareholder is dominant. So where does that leave us? Well, the desire for change is absolutely here. There's a whole generation of talented young people stating very clearly they're seeking more from their workplace than just the pursuit of profit. There's greater demand for accountability and transparency from consumers and advocacy groups. And there are companies who are actually taking a leadership role. So take, for example, the Tata Group. They are a multinational conglomerate based in India. They do about $100 billion of revenue a year. They have been investing in their communities. And they've been doing this through healthcare services, job skills training, and education. And they've been doing that for 150 years. It is built into their DNA. They aren't just investing in the prosperity of today. They are investing in the people who will one day want to buy their products. Schneider Electric is another example. They're an energy management and automation company in Europe. And they have committed 50% of their executive and shareholder executive and senior management compensation to achievement of their environmental, social, and governance goals. Or take Unilever. At the core of Unilever Strategy is a simple idea: sustainable living. And to that end, they have invested in 800,000 farmers in their sustainable practices, and those farmers supply Unilever. They have invested in reducing their energy consumption by 20%. And most interestingly, they have eliminated waste that they send to landfills in 70 countries. So of course Unilever makes money. But in 34 countries, they are considered an employer of choice because people are looking for purpose in their work. This kind of long-term thinking actually produces greater value. Investing in the strength and sustainability of a supply chain, investing in the development of communities, investing in efficiency and the elimination of waste, those are all good business decisions. But those things also create and sustain jobs. They create greater well-being in our society, and they reduce the burdens on our environment. Because when we invest for the future, we ensure there's something there for us in the future. So what is the purpose of business? I believe that business is a platform for ingenuity, creativity, and prosperity. It gives us a way to focus our resources on solving a problem. It gives us a means to aligning a complex set of stakeholder interests, and it compels us to invest today for our benefit tomorrow. And that kind of bigger picture, longer term thinking is why I think the stakeholder model will ultimately win the debate. Because how we answer the question of purpose is a reflection of what matters to us, what we value. Now, of course, profit is an important measure, don't get me wrong, but it is not, and I believe it cannot be, the only measure of value. What if we measured value through other things like economic impact or wage growth? What about quality of life, happiness? What about life expectancy? Maybe poverty reduction or reduced carbon footprint? What if we committed those kinds of measures to the core of our business, to the core of our strategy? I believe that if we can take a broader view of what value is, we will land at the doorstep of something called purpose-driven strategy. And that's where I've committed myself to put more time and energy, because I believe it is at the heart of what will transform our economy and our society. So I want to leave you with something to think about. Whether you're in a business or a nonprofit, or whether you're in a volunteer group, whatever it might be, how does your organization define value and therefore purpose? It will take thoughtful, resourceful leadership to tackle the complex challenges of creating value, the challenges that are ahead of us. But in doing so, we're going to give ourselves permission to move away from short-term reactive thinking and towards long-term value creation that will have a greater impact on our shared prosperity. And the sooner we get down to that hard work of figuring out what it is we truly value, the sooner we can actually get down to the business of creating that value, and we can get companies to take that leadership role. and make a real difference in our communities, in our environment, and in our shared prosperity. Thank you.